What is now proved was once only imagined. I'm architect Karan Anand, introducing you to episode 6 of the Mirzapur Manifesto, brought to you by our brand partners OBT. Today we have with us Sandeep Khosla, co-founder and principal at Khosla and Anand, and Tania Singh Khosla, founder and creative director at TSK Design. And I can't wait to introduce them to you all.
Hi, I'm Sandeep Khosla, and I'm co-founder of Khosla and Anand, and we're a boutique architecture and interior design practice based out of Bangalore, and we've been at it for almost 3 decades.
Hi, I'm Tania Singh Khosla, founder and creative director of TSK Design. We're also a boutique branding and graphic design practice based out of Bangalore, and we worked across industries from hospitality to lifestyle brands. And yes, we've also been at it for almost 3 decades.
Thank you guys for being here. I've been refraining on my excitement since you all have come. I should have shown it at that point of time, but now that we're on camera, I'm going to embarrass myself and tell you all about how overtly excited me and my team are to have you all here. It's like a journey for us, and I feel like you all being here is a huge stepping stone for us. So before we even begin this conversation, I would like to share that with you all.
Well, thank you for inviting us. It's a real pleasure. You all are a great bunch of people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So before we begin talking about your practices and your collaborative exercises and what you all are doing, I want to talk about your formative years. How you all reached this stage in your career, and why I want to bring this up is because a lot of practices begin and end. The persistence and the consistency to be where you all are today is not easy. It's near impossible in today's day and age. So could you tell us about how this all came about?
Well, I think we both went into college in the US to study fine art. So that's the beginning. I kind of pivoted towards architecture through some architectural history classes. Tania was a fine art
I was doing
major.
printmaking and sculpture at a liberal arts school, and
it's in those New York days that we met, and our first date was actually going to the MoMA, to a museum.
And it was rare in those days to find an Indian man who would enjoy spending the day in the museum with you. So we looked at art together. We had great conversations, and I still remember this one moment. It was our first date, and we were walking down, was it Fifth Avenue, and there was the St. Patrick's Cathedral, and right opposite St. Patrick's Cathedral is this incredible sculpture of Atlas holding up the globe.
That's right.
And I mean, I had walked past that so many times, but then when Sandeep and I walked by together, he took me behind the sculpture of Atlas. And then he said, look up. And when I looked up, you could see the St. Patrick's Cathedral exactly framed within the globe of the Atlas. And it was such a magical sight. It was a perspective I had never seen. And I think that was the beginning. I think that's been the kind of relationship we've had where my perspective has changed because of his influences, and I would imagine his have changed because of mine.
The common bond was always design and art, and that's how we grew up, and in those formative years, and exchanging ideas about architecture and interiors and graphic design and contemporary art. And
so I think we are lucky we found each other.
That's beautiful. Thank you for the lovely answer. Let's talk about your influences, because I feel like to reach a stage in your career where you are right now, you can't just up and start a practice and keep repeating the same thing again and again and again. You need to have layering, you need to have databasing, you need to understand what you truly believe in, virtues, values, and I'm sure you all have a lot of that. I've heard a little bit of it, but I'm not going to mention it. I want you all to speak about it, and I'm really excited to hear it one more time.
So I, like as Sandeep said, I started doing fine art, printmaking and sculpture, and then I discovered graphic design, which was, something that was not that well known in India at that time. And I ended up going to Yale to do my MFA in graphic design. And the Yale School of Art is one of the oldest design schools in the US. And it was founded by the fathers of the Swiss design movement. So the program was heavily influenced by Swiss design principles of functionality and precision and less is more, and to kind of refrain from being too emotive or emotional in design, and be very logical and rational in your approach. And I think that was a very strong foundation, which is still the bedrock of my design approach. But I also, 8 years in the US, but would keep coming back to India, and our visual culture is diametrically the opposite of a Swiss international aesthetic. Here we believe more is more. Our approach to aesthetics is very intuitive. Our connection to color is very emotive, And so bringing those two worlds together was something that I started thinking about in my early years, in my formative years. How do I bring these two influences of the rigor of the Swiss design approach, but really the beauty and the natural sort of intuitive approach to aesthetics that we have in India? How do you bring those two worlds together? And I think that's been a common thread in my practice from the beginning to now, and a lot of the collaborative work that we do as well.
I didn't realize actually when you said it, and now that I'm looking at the work that I've looked at, I think goes back and brings me to a lot of Dadaist philosophies and virtues that existed right at that point of time. And you've kind of tied it down and brought it to our Indian environment, which is really, really beautiful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, I can see some common threads because I was actually at Pratt Institute School of Architecture. I had some wonderful professors out there, but they were all conceptual thinkers. And it was a very conceptual program, actually, and which was very exciting, really made you think. And when I came back to India, I remember going to I wanted to work with two architects, one of two. One was Doshi and one was Korea. And both offered me a job, and I finally chose to work with Charles. And I think that was those years were quite formative. I worked for a year and a half at his office in Churchgate, and I remember really kind of being struck at the kind of practice that he had developed, which had created a kit of parts to respond to our climate and our culture, and open to sky spaces and permeable spaces. And those were the kind of, I said, this is the kind of architecture I want to practice that responds to our environment in such a meaningful way. I remember being in his office. I mean, Charles actually introduced me to Jeffrey Bawa. And when Bawa's first book came out, it was just magical to see that book. And Charles got a hand of it, and he called the entire office into his room, and he was flipping the pages, and he said, look at this, hotel project, and look at the canopies, and look at this. And I was mesmerized, and that it followed, a trip to Sri Lanka followed, and a common friend of ours, Abhishek Poddar, actually introduced us to Jeffrey Bawa, and we spent a full day at his studio, and then he he chalked the entire trip for us to go and see all his projects. So that was,
and I just revisited.
That was just fabulous, actually, to meet him at that time and to interact. And he was on a wheelchair at his Bagatelle Road office, and so those were very impressionable years, and that really charted a way forward for the practice.
I'm just curious, how did you make the decision between Doshi and Korea? I'm so curious. It's out of syllabus, but I'm just so curious.
Personally, I connected with Korea's work at that time more.
Wow.
And I think in retrospect, Doshi's office would have been gentler.
Yeah. For sure,
And
yeah, I
it
can
would
imagine.
have, and Charles' office was tough. It was a tough kind of working environment. He was a tough boss.
Yeah.
But I would have been a different architect if I'd worked with Doshi maybe. And
I had one of my classmates just towards Charles Courier sir's last few years. He had appointed her to database all of his work in a digital format. So she would tell me stories about how he would be in that office even in his last day. She's like, he's such a tough taskmaster,
Yeah.
and he could barely speak after a certain point of time, but he did not stop working till his last breath. And I think that also defines that legacy of practice, and also defines how you all are building your practice right now, because there is no contemplation, there is no ideating, there is work that is being done, and you're moving forward at a rapid pace. Whether you may like to believe it or not, we see it and we are very inspired by it. Anya, could you tell us about how you were inspired to begin practice in India once you were back here?
So to be honest, he came back to India a few years before I did, and the decision to come back to India, I think, was that India was booming at that time, and in architecture there wasn't that much happening. There wasn't that much scope to build in New York in the early days. So Sandeep decided to come back, and I stayed on. Did my masters over 3 years, and when I came back to India, it was tough, honestly, in the beginning, because graphic design as a profession was very nascent in India. People didn't really know what the practice, what it was.
In fact, it's just now picking up for everybody. Otherwise, even say a few years back, only a niche crowd understood it and felt the value of it.
Yeah.
But it's only now that people are really grasping the idea that without it, there is nothing.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
So when I came back, in fact, just again off script, when Sandeep was working with Charles, I happened to be in India for that summer, and I was reading a book on typography, and Charles, I was waiting for him at the office, and Charles said, "What is that book you're reading?" And I said, "It's a book on typography." He said, who reads books on typography? You have to work on my book." And I said, "Your book?" And he said, "Yeah, they're coming out with a monograph, and would you like to work on the design of it?" So that was a lovely little sort of coming together that happened back in the day.
She was actually working at that time with LC.
I interned with Elsie Nanji at that time. She was working on the book, and I happened to then work on Charles's book. But there were few people like Charles who understood the value of that kind of nuance. And when I moved back to India, I found that people didn't really know what graphic design was. So you had to explain to people that, it's like advertising, but it's not advertising. People didn't understand the importance of branding, So there were no predecessors. I didn't really have a mentor in India that I could work with and shape my practice around. So then, there are pros and cons to that, right? I would have loved to have had a mentor, but I didn't. So I just had to figure it out on my own, And I think that in some senses, being sort of like one of the early pioneers of like the field of graphic design and branding in India was very exciting, because while you had to educate your client, you also got to shape the industry in a sense. And as you educated your client, many opportunities kind of came my way, So I think it was a very exciting time, and I've seen the industry shaped from being, just really nascent to now there's a lot of sort of exciting design work happening here. But again, to your point of what you said earlier, because the way technology has made things so easy, there's just like I don't think there's as much thoughtful design coming out as one would like to see.
If you want to choose a font now, you just like scroll.
And there's too much. There's just too much.
Yeah.
You don't really need to, there's not that much thought being put into why this font versus that font, right?
Yeah.
I noticed that you've changed your branding from a serif to this, and it's small, really smart and nicely thought out and reflects, I guess.
I can't believe you noticed that.
Of course I noticed it. It
so
goes
much
with your
time on
clothes.
it.
You're fully branded.
We spent so much time on it. I in fact, got this very young designer called Tanmay on board, and his studio is called Tota Design. He's in Ahmedabad, and I said, we're doing this, but I feel like there's something that is not right about this logo, because I had that thought and I designed it, and Pragati helped me, and in fact the this
Sorry, it's
these
got all
two,
my lipstick
yeah,
on
that's
it.
okay. These two are basically actually not the way you pronounce it, but
Huh.
it's my cat's tail and his eyes.
Okay.
So
So sweet.
he looked at me and he said, the font has to be slightly thinner. You have to increase the gaps. You have to do this. And I was like, and the moment he changed it, I was just like,
It's amazing how those
just
small
those, I would
moves.
have,
Yeah.
in no universe,
Yeah.
would I have ever realized that that's all that is needed to do.
Yeah.
I would have always imagined that, okay, maybe we have to change the font completely, we have to change the colors, there's something wrong, but
Sometimes it's just the
yeah,
smallest moves. So
the
you have to
micros.
have
Yeah.
a really fine eye.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we prized ourselves on, in our practice. That yes, the world is moving at a rapid pace right now. But you have to keep up, but you can't let go of your fundamental principles. And I think when I talked earlier about the foundational years of that very Swiss design training where precision and rigor are the bedrock. So nothing actually leaves the office without like making sure that everything is just perfect and where
She
it needs
sounds
to be.
like a Charles Correa of the modern day. I'm getting a little stressed about this episode now. I also want to talk to you about something interesting. You all got to witness the cultural dynamic of our country when modernism had hit, when postmodernism had started to hit, right? You saw all of the greats. You got an opportunity to work with them and then build your practice after that, right? The same goes for you, where you came to a country where it did not exist. I'm not even going to say that there was a little bit of it. It simply did not exist. For us right now, if you look at the Hindu from say 30 years back, you go back and you're like, wow, like, let's use this. I feel like post the 90s, right? There are very few individuals in our country who are creating things. Art movements have faded away. We're just taking inspiration from the past. So, do you feel like this is a downside and we need to work on it? Because you all are doing it, but how do we revive it on a large scale in our country and internationally, not just our country? It's a very complex question.
It's a complex question, Karan. I think, we are responding to our times.
Yeah.
We're responding to a world in flux.
Yeah.
We're responding to climate change. There's so many things that one is responding to.
Yeah.
And we are actually, as designers, all of us are responding just very naturally to that.
Hanji.
If interiors were very minimal at one point and cold, no one wants those. They want layered
Yeah.
kind of interiors with a lot of meaning and comfort. And all those things are because the world around us is at flux. So we want to be comforted in our spaces. So we are, responding to our times, honestly. So I don't think work should happen or new movement should happen for the sake of it happening. If it is particularly responding to a time or a need, then I think it should happen.
Otherwise, it's just something forced. It will come when it has to come, basically.
But also, I think that you can, you can put a name to or label to or see a trend or a movement after it's happened. When you look back, right? At the time that is happening, as he said, you're responding and you're making, right?
It's a beautiful interpretation.
And when that time has gone and you look back, then you can put a label to it and say it was that movement. But when you're in it, you're just in it, right?
Yeah, you're in it. Right.
And I think that the one thing I think that is happening, and I don't know if it's relevant to architecture and design, but I think that I see it in fashion, I see it in popular culture. I think there's definitely a very India proud moment that's happening now. Where you can see, Indian designers and Indian brands really kind of own and celebrate a lot of our context, craft, and sort of new thinking and ideas coming out of India, which I actually think it's a really exciting moment in time for design in India. And maybe, it'll take a decade to look back and see it, but you can feel it. I think I can feel it. I don't know.
Yeah. I sometimes feel that designers, with the barrage of kind of imagery that we have, on our cell phones, and I mean, it's just coming at us at such a rapid pace. Um, I feel that there is too much kind of referencing of, you know, Pinterest and this and that, and we've got too
Instagram
much.
and
And I wish younger designers would try and find their own voice. Of course, there is that aspect of it, because there's just so much imagery that are you actually responding to first to that imagery, or are you responding to the needs of the project?
Yeah.
Or are you responding actually to the context, to that
Yeah.
program specifically, and is the form or the outcome a result of the program, or is the form first and then the program? So I think we should actually work. I always tell the practice that we should work from the inside out rather than from the outside in.
I love your responses. I've asked so many human designers, I'm saying human beings, so many designers this question, and this is the first time I've heard it from this angle where you said that 10 years later, you look back and you call it a movement because there is a lot happening, but because we are in the moment, we don't realize that it is a movement, and that's beautiful. Thank you for those lovely answers. I want to go straight to Bangalore, right? Especially during the beginnings, because Bangalore made you, you made Bangalore.
Yeah.
You know? So could you tell me about it and how it all began?
Yeah, it was the early 1990s actually that we moved to Bangalore. And what I really liked about the city was that people were very open to working with younger designers. No one was judging you from where you came from or where you stayed, and so it was very, I think, open society at that time. We both got some very lucky breaks. I mean, as a
think-
young architect, I got to design Kiran Majumdar's 12-acre farmhouse. I mean, that's her primary residence, and Tania got to
think,
do her branding.
Yeah, I mean Bangalore, the DNA of Bangalore, and it is what it is because of that DNA. It's very entrepreneurial in its spirit. People are risk takers, and Kiran took a risk on Sandeep and me. We were young kids, and as Sandeep said, he designed her beautiful home, and I rebranded Biocon in 2002, and that branding still exists today in 2025. It's one of the largest biopharma companies in the world today. But for her to have taken that chance on me, I was just, a few years out of college. And so Bangalore's been really good to us, and we've tried to kind of give back to the city in our way. And
Well, I remember us being kind of at the forefront of the nightlife of Bangalore at one point.
for a long time.
There was this young couple from New York who we befriended in Bangalore, and we designed the first New York style lounge bar in a historic 150-year-old building.
It still exists, right?
It still exists.
Not in that avatar.
Not in that
It is
avatar,
now.
but this
But
was
he's
in
done
the
the
heart of the
current one.
CBD, a very handsome Tudor-style building in what used to be the Bangalore cantonment, but now it's, and this was one of the first examples of adaptive reuse in the city. And we created this beautiful lounge bar called 180 Proof. Tania did a very sensual branding for that project.
It was all very sexy in those days.
Yeah, and there were 800 people every night kind of waiting outside to get in.
I
And
mean,
so it was
prior
kind
to
of
that,
heavy.
Bangalore was a very casual city. We had, pubs, and you just go in your jeans and your chappals and you go for a beer, and no one really dressed up to go out.
It
And
was
this
it was
like
a
it was quite
place
the
of
rage
English
at
pubs.
that time.
Yeah, at that time.
No, and when 180 Proof, when Sandeep and his team designed the space, it was a very dramatic, very beautiful, very sexy space. The branding kind of echoed the same sensuality, and there'd be lines of people dressed up to go out at night, and that didn't exist. That culture didn't exist. So this was when was it? In
1996,
No, Maika was a year old. It was a year our daughter was born, 99.
Yeah,
99.
96, 99.
Yeah,
and
she
then,
used to come with us
and
when
that,
we'd go
that
for-
led to a string of bars and restaurants and the whole hospitality scene. I mean, people who reflect back saying that your practices really kind of redefined the
We did a-
nightlife
yeah,
of
we
that
did a
city at
lot
that
of
time.
restaurants and bars
of the city at that time.
time.
Yeah, and I think from a climate point of view, Bangalore was fantastic. So Personally, architecturally, we were able to really practice our tropical modern architecture in such a wonderful environment where you could really kind of have a lot of outdoor and semi-outdoor spaces.
And I mean, of course, our practices have grown and now we are doing work across the country and some outside. But I think that Bangalore is still, we come back to Bangalore and we just, despite the traffic and the madness, we just come back and it really feels great to be home because, and I think that some of, at least my favorite projects are still projects that we've done in Bangalore. So yeah, I mean, I think
you've recently done a book on Bangalore.
Recently, it's called Bangalorean.
Yeah.
And it's a book, it's a collaboration between a curator, 2 photographers, 2 writers, and myself as the designer. And it's a book that basically celebrates the spirit of Bangalore. And it's actually launched the book in December, and there's an exhibition at MAP, which is the Museum of Art and Photography. That has a digital exhibition of the book and the photographs. And it's really an ode to the city that we all call home.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for those stunning answers. Before we continue, we're going to play a little game. I'm going to put you all out of your comfort zone and have a little game. Okay, so now we're going to play a game. It's called color code. Okay, so I'm going to give you a color and you have to interpret the color in interiors or branding or marketing in any one way, and no answers are wrong, no answers are right. You can give me like strange answers if you like.
It's a great topic you've chosen.
Yeah.
Because it's something that he and I both love and incorporate in our work.
We were wondering what to get you all to do without you all being really awkward, so we're like, this works. Okay, so let's begin, all right? So the first color is pastel pink.
So can I interpret your pastel pink as salmon because it's my favorite color?
Yeah, salmon, yeah.
How would I use it? Well, I love the way we've used it on our column carpet because it's a really easy and pleasant color to live with.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
I would love to use it on ceramic and in matte ceramic as well as a glazed ceramic. I think it can be very nuanced. But
it would be very
Japanese. I would also interpret that as a salmon.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. Indigo blue.
My clothes. It's the real actual indigo. I could just live in them.
Yeah, funnily enough, I gravitate towards indigo blue sofas and indigo blue walls in some of our architectural projects. We've used indigo blue, that kind of a deep kind of indigo, quite extensively, both in architecture as well as our interior spaces, both in external walls and in furnishings, quite a bit.
Lovely. Burnt sienna.
How would I use burnt sienna? Actually, I'm working on a project right now. It's a book on botanicals, on colonial botanical paintings, and we're doing, the natural thing would have been to go with green for the cover, but we're doing burnt sienna because it's a nice natural color. It picks up on the color of the plants and the flowers.
That book sounds amazing.
It's going to be a lovely book. Yeah. So on a book cover with some nice deep embossing and some beautiful typography.
Lovely.
Well, our palette is quite earthy in our architectural practice, and both my partner Amrish and I love using vernacular elements also. And then, I mean, that burnt sienna reminds me of the terracotta kind of tiles.
It reminds me of the Dune School, the art school, the brick walls. Right?
So it reminds me of, I was going to say that, it reminds me of the extensive tiled roof projects that we do, and it reminds me of all our brick architecture. So it's an extensive material, but I like to use it more as the material itself
rather than okay. Olive green.
My favorite Kota stone.
Oh yeah.
Both in river finish and in a mirror I have to say one thing, that we started using Kota, and that's one of the, I think we can be credited as one of the practices that used it extensively. It was a very early trip to Ahmedabad, where I saw Bimal Patel's work, and I saw the way Kota had been used.
Yeah.
You know, our entire home is polished Kota. And and it's just, I think you sourced it on that trip. It's just beautiful, and I think
The way it feels on your feet, that material is.
It's really how you
but I
use
also
Kota.
think that it gives you, since you're talking about color, I think it's a great backdrop to really bring in color.
Yeah.
You know, to bring in highlights of color, because it's a great sort of base to
And I
build
feel
on.
like even say 20 years later, if you're redoing your space, if you have Kota, you don't need to change the floor because it grows with everything around you.
Yeah.
But we found that when you use color effectively on Kota, it's just most
Yeah,
effective.
stands out. Okay, the last one. Okay, deep burgundy.
Deep burgundy. I think from a branding perspective, I'll say that, you know, color has a lot of symbolism and meaning, and deep burgundy is a color that, you know, we do a lot of work in the education space. We branded a lot of schools, and again, you know, it's a reflection of like the times that schools are needing to brand and look international and all of that. And deep burgundy is typically a very sort of Ivy League, you know, higher education kind of a color. And so we've done Stonehill, which is an international school in Bangalore. We've rebranded an old school, Vidya Shilp. So burgundy has actually come into a lot of our education branding because of the meaning and the association.
Thank you so much.
I like using like burgundy more as accents, you know. It could be a cushion, it could be just a little reveal or a piping on a as a detail on a chair. It could be, but I like to use it sparingly.
It is a more traditional color,
Yeah.
and I think that, but you know, I mean, maybe our design sensibilities are not as sort of, you know, rich and traditional. So maybe
I like to use it
accents,
in accents. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. Well done, guys. Let's give them a round of applause. Well done. That was a fun game. Thank you so much. Coming back to our conversation, you all have been collaborating together for over 30 years now. You all began at some point and you all are here today. So could you tell us about the beginnings of this journey and where you all have reached?
So, you know, back when we first set up our studio, we had a tiny little house that we had bought in Indranagar in Bangalore, and we shared a space on one floor. And as our practices grew, you know, one floor became 2, today it's 4. And the one thing that we've always kind of wanted and have worked into the space, because space makes a big difference to, you know, the way you work. And so we've had, first we used to have a spiral staircase that was like a spine. It was the DNA of our studios. And now with 4 floors, we still have like a very open staircase that connects all 4 levels. So there's a very natural flow of energy between Sandeep's practice and my practice. So the architects, interior designers, graphic designers are, you know, they chat with each other.
Chance encounters that happen.
You know, they're
on
going
the
up and down the
staircase.
stairs, they stop on a landing, they chat, they have lunch together. So I think the flow of thoughts and ideas between both practices has been very natural right from the beginning, and that's led to a sort of a multidisciplinary approach for both of us, and the collaborations really kind of just naturally came out of that.
There were always architects, interior designers, and graphic designers in the same kind of studio space. So, you know, there was that very natural and organic interaction. So,
And I think we want to talk about our first fun collaboration.
MTV.
yeah, that was.
was-
Well,
it MTV?
Yes,
this was
it was
actually
MTV.
the MTV South India office, and I remember at that time Sunil Lulla.
Yeah.
He was the CEO, and he approached us, and he said, "We've got a shoestring budget, and we want to want you guys to do this office for us.
And it should be anything but a corporate
and it
office.
should be anything but a corporate office. So we took on that challenge and we said, we did the diametric opposite of the modern corporate interior by kind of poking fun at regional cliches, and you know how MTV had come into India and really embraced the culture, and
It was our
done it.
childhood. Like
Yeah,
MTV was our
exactly.
childhood.
It was, I mean, it was very tongue in cheek. And I think what MTV was doing was that it was repackaging and giving back to young India sort of a new and edgy version of the things that we saw around us, the graphics on the streets or the, signboards and film poster art. But they just made it really cool in the way they edited and brought that back into the graphics. And so we
I think
wanted
this
to
was
give
almost like a turnkey project where we were standing on site day and night
things that
and
you do
actually
when you're young.
getting everything done ourselves. We repurposed an auto rickshaw as the reception table and had a barber's chair as part of the seating with these large, like an MTV cutout
Yeah.
from one space to the other. And then Tania commissioned these film
I mean,
poster
commission
artists.
first to find them because we wanted to work with bringing like the street into the space,
yeah.
So at that time was that point of transition where film poster, hand painted, larger than life film poster. Graphics was still, sort of somewhat visible, but it was transitioning to digital, and that lovely quality was being lost. And a lot of these artists were kind of going out of work. So we managed to find this amazing artist, Sampath, went to his studio in Malleshwaram, got him to our office, and there was this wonderful collaboration where we were creating things digitally and then chatting with him, and then he would translate these larger than life faces onto the walls, the reception walls of MTV. And
And that was really our first use of very, very vibrant,
very
tropical
vibrant colors. I mean,
Indian
your
colors.
indigo
shocking,
blue.
shocking
we did the
colors.
Indigo, remember the indigo blue one?
Yeah.
And,
And pink and,
I
Which
mean,
year
we
was
went,
this in?
huh?
Which year was this?
This was in 1999,
Was it
1998,
98,
and funnily enough, this tiny project of 800 square feet or 800 square feet made it to the cover of Interiors USA.
New York.
Yeah.
And it was in How magazine, it was in Interiors New York. I mean, it got like, there's a time for everything, right? At that time, it was just so novel. In today's context, it's charming. It may be a bit kitsch, but at that time, it was just so right for that time and for what MTV was doing in India. And it was great fun because I think that it really kind of broke us out of the the spaces that we were working in. Like, I mean, I was working on, like we were talking earlier on, the spacing between letters. And then all of a sudden you have this huge canvas to work on and you're free, And Sandeep also just allowed himself to work with color in a way that was, I think, the first time you used color so boldly.
So boldly.
And it was just really
Fun project.
I think it's
I think
still
it really
very
brings
dear
us,
to us.
it brings a smile to our face
Yes,
even today.
even today, yeah.
I think it's also the emotions you felt while you were doing it, and you were given the freedom to do what you wanted to
Absolutely.
do. So, yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah, Tower Kitchen was an interesting project on a rooftop of one of these buildings
UB City,
in UB
wasn't it?
City, and we did this. I think that was truly collaborative actually, because spatially, all kitchen utensils, whisks and spatulas and pans and pots, and
Because
were all kind of created into these beautiful metal screens.
Utilitarian things were kind of glorified into art.
We glorified those into art and then created these wonderful dividers, which actually pivoted and
Shapes of
kind of
these,
connected or
utensils.
divided different spaces in that project. So that was a very exciting project.
And we even got custom carpets made
Yeah.
for based on these utensils. We made patterns and tessellations out of them.
I think we were having a great
did
time with
carpets,
with the amount of customization we could do.
Yeah.
And we were like literally like kids in a candy store, coming back and working in India at that time. It was just fabulous, and because there was just you could customize anything, a doorknob, a handle,
Yeah.
this or that, and we can still do that, which is
And I think
fabulous,
that's
yeah.
actually one of the things that excites us the most about practicing here and working together is the degree of customization. So, later when we talk about products, I mean, it's entirely possible because, you've got amazing karigars here who you can work with
Exactly.
and really customize and bring your ideas to life.
Yeah.
I think another project was Green Park, maybe.
That's recent. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was.
that was a recent project, a 130-room business hotel we did, and the whole idea was to actually celebrate because the client gave us a brief to do an India modern
Yeah.
sensibility, and that's a very cliched word actually. And
But I think
what
that
does
was, I think for him it was a way, it is a legacy, it's a legacy brand
Yeah.
out of Hyderabad, very well regarded. But they wanted to rebrand and his idea was, it was, when he said India Modern, it was really also to differentiate Green Park from all the global brands that are there in India, in that business, in that space, right?
Yeah,
And
but we really give it a thought as to
yeah,
what
what
India
does that
Modern
mean?
really
Yeah.
means to us. So Khosla Associates did the architecture, did the interiors of this shell, and then TSK did the entire branding and the environmental
lovely how it
graphics.
all-
And it's
So
beautiful how it came
cohesive.
together because we worked with craft studios around the country, from Channapatna to wood marquetry from Mysore. We did bone inlay from Jodhpur. We did paper mache from Kashmir. It was just fabulous how we worked with the best of design studios across the country.
So the branding actually, took its cues from the interior language, and we just found actually you didn't talk about the vault. They did this. I mean, it was an existing shell, and one of the big moves that they did was there's a beautiful vaulted ceiling clad in wood as soon as you walk into the lobby, and
It's
that's
actually
like.
clad in shingles and it runs right along the lobby.
It's like the
Yeah.
it's like the big
Yeah.
move that they made. So, and it has a semicircular form, much like what's ahead or in front of us. And the circle is a motif that just we found, like them on the tables and various ways. So that kind of found its way into the branding. So all of it really kind of holds beautifully together, and we did really fun environmental graphics. Bangalore is known for its Puram flower market. It's like if you ever come, you really have to visit it early morning. And it's an incredible sight when you go there and you have these flower sellers in these big circular baskets with like, marigold garlands, and you see that top shot of it is such a delight. So we brought that element of the circle of the basket with the flowers into the space. Sandeep gave us this. I mean, it was a bit daunting because it was like a 20-foot high ceiling, and he said, just create something for this. And it was like the first thing you see when you walk into the lobby. And so we did a customized wall hanging. It's a carpet actually that we got woven.
Which was
and it's
ironic. I mean, it's actually, it was manufactured in Mirzapur.
in Mirzapur, yeah. And it's basically an abstraction of like the experience of walking through the flower market with these giant, baskets of flower sellers, and that again found its way into the environmental graphics in the space where, you walk into these rooms which are very, would you say, mid-century kind of a.
Yeah,
an
mid-century
aesthetic
modern, but I think
and-
there was a lot of kind of delight and
Yeah.
joy in the graphics.
Yeah, I mean the spaces were quite sort of.
It was a
good,
business hotel, but
business
I think
hotel,
the joy came through
and
the.
then we wanted to bring in some
graphic,
joy
yeah.
and context into the graphics could do that. So you have, in the south, when we walk on the streets, you'll always see, no matter what the woman is wearing, a sari or a lehenga or whatever, she will have malipus in her hair.
Yeah.
And this, the idea of adornment was something I spoke about earlier in India, embellishment is really important, right? And so that the way women embellish their hair with their flowers is something which is just very quintessentially South India. So we have, these lovely circular images of women with flower
That
on
became
their
a kind
hair
of a theme right through
through the.
the hotel. Yeah.
And I think, earlier when I asked you that question about how your practice is sustained the test of time, I think this answer does full and complete justice to it, because the way you kind of put efforts into finding practices that you can collaborate with artisans, with culture, deriving inspiration from something as simple as an embellishment in a woman's hair, things like that, or a flower basket. These are things that I feel like all of us need to unlearn and relearn, because just going on a Pinterest board and then taking derivative from it does not make sense. I feel like y'all are the OG Pinterest board. Like before Pinterest came about, I would probably look up at your practice to kind of get ideas from it. So it's absolutely stunning the way your body of work has come about, and I'm glad to be the person to hear it sitting across you rather than read about it on a vlog.
It's been great fun chatting with you.
Yeah. Let's talk about your products. You all are working on some products together, so could you tell us about that?
So, yeah, so, I think that this is, Sandeep and I have been the last few years working on products. And I think that this idea of working on products has been in gestation for many, many years, right? And I think there's always a right time for something. And I think we're at that stage in our careers where we've both matured as designers in our individual practices, which are very robust in their own ways. But it just felt like the right time to collaborate on products that would really kind of blur the boundaries between, his experience with interiors and materiality, and, the way I look at color and storytelling and, typography even. And
Yeah,
so
and also, Tanya, I think it's exciting for us to be able to, after so many years, work for ourselves
Yeah.
and design from the gut without a client, that we are our own clients. And when we're designing products, we're not thinking that you're designing for anyone else's brief. It's your own brief that you're creating.
So our
Yeah.
litmus test is really, do we love what we are making? Would we use it in our home? Of course, I mean, at the end of the day, you want, for us, and I think Sandeep, you would agree, that the success of a product is that other people must enjoy it.
Yeah.
You must want to use it, and you must find delight in it, right? But it's just a very different liberating experience to just follow your gut and say, this feels right to us. We're doing something right. Let's just go with it and put it out in the world and
Yeah.
hope that the world responds to it. So that's been our
We're still in that
approach.
phase of just designing literally from the gut, working with materials that we've always wanted to work with.
Yeah.
I think we're both drawn towards craft. So there's
That's
always
the,
a
that's
craft
the thing
That's
that
very
links all.
aligned.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and how we bring a kind of a contemporary lens to working with craftsmen, and I think that's what's really exciting us these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if I were to think about why we do what we do, right? And what would be like one of the pillars of the way we approach our products is that there must be a craft element. There's enough out there in the world, like why create more, you know?
And products must delight. It
They
must
must
bring meaning
delight,
to
they
someone's
must
life.
sustain,
must give
they
joy,
must
yeah.
tell a story, and definitely the handcrafted. And I think it's almost, for me personally as a graphic designer, it's almost a reaction to the digital world that we live in. It's become ever so easy to just generate images on AI. When you talk about branding, you're coming out with a physical magazine, which is great, but most people are just consuming digital content. So I think it's almost coming full circle back to like the beginnings of our art practices, where materiality. Yeah. Sandeep is lucky. I think in his practice, there's so much experimentation with materiality.
Yeah, but
for me, it's like
I'm
it's
constantly telling
coming
the
back to
office,
it.
I'm constantly telling the office, get back to making models.
Yeah.
Make physical models. There's so much we learn
Yeah.
making with our hands.
So all our
You know.
products actually,
But we always
has,
sketch on paper first.
making models, drawing by hand. It's been a very tactile kind of
I think the
journey.
moment you make a model,
Huh.
your entire perspective, no matter what access you have to 3D software, that hand model just changes the entire iteration and understanding of the space, right? Because when you make that model, when you make the staircase block, when you make the slab, when you make the window, the door, you remember every single dimension. I was speaking to Jason yesterday, and he was talking to me about how his father remembered every single detail, right? The size of the column, the width. I said it's because he made a physical model. Because you have cut your fingers making that damn column and that window and the French window with the, those plastic things, that you remember everything to the T. And you then, that design becomes very close to your heart because the effort's gone into actually creating it.
Yeah.
So it makes a big, big difference.
Which is why handcrafting, working with craftspeople is so important. You said something that's made by hand stays close to your heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's what endures.
Another lovely collaboration we've done, another product. These were limited edition pieces. It's called the Conversation series. And it started off with a bench, which was a wonderful coming together of two materials, concrete and hand-carved wood. We worked with a master craftsman to work on this hand-carved wood. Again, with collaborators, there's this outfit in Delhi called Mangrove Collective, and we worked with them as our partners. And so there's a lovely juxtaposition between the hand-carved and the elemental, between these two aesthetics. And also the industrial process of making a FRP mold and casting the concrete, and then the hand-carved work of a master craftsman on wood. So I think that juxtaposition was just wonderful. We had this river of hand-carved wood flowing through cast concrete, and then we extended it into a console and coffee tables and an entire collection.
The whole collection. And actually, master craftsman, the wood carver is quite used to working with flowers, flora and fauna motifs that you see a lot, you see it here, for example, right? But, our starting point was, botanical drawings from colonial, when they used to document these scientific drawings to study flora and fauna of India, and they're just we looked at, they're very detailed and quite different from the stylized approach to wood carve motifs. And we worked on these lovely sort of flowing, fluid botanical motifs, which was quite unfamiliar to the master craftsman. And it was a lovely dialogue between us and him on how to interpret these 2D, very detailed, beautifully shaded drawings into, bring it alive, the degree of carving, what should go up, what should go down. So it was really a
pretty involved
lovely
process.
We started with a bench, and then when we started developing more products, the other exciting thing was the experimenting with pigmented concrete. So now we have like a deep green concrete bench. We have a salmon pink, we have a terracotta, all colors you've quizzed us on.
Yes.
So we recently, I think beginning of this year, we were invited to take part at this this film festival, which was done by STIR as the media house with the Film Festival of New York. And this was an architecture and design film festival at NCPA.
Yes.
Lovely site. And they wanted to do a pavilion park. We were one of the designers invited to do an installation. So we did this larger than life installation. We called it Dialogue. And Tania had done a hybrid typeface in her thesis. Yeah.
A typeface that I had designed back in grad school. It was called Curry. And it's called Curry, and it's basically a hybrid typeface that combines Devanagari and Unsial, and it was hand drawn with a reed pen and then digitized, and it's a funny hybrid between it's a Latin script, but you can feel that there's something different about it because it's got its influences from Devanagari.
So we created these larger than life letters, three-dimensional, of this wonderful typeface. In the NCP grounds, and each of these letters kind of talk to each other. They were kind of placed very whimsically,
dynamically.
Dynamically.
They were huge, so it was this huge typographic pavilion, and these letters were kind of clustered together in a composition in a way that invited people to walk through the letters. You know, you
Sit
could be
on it.
sitting on a letter. The letter
You
could
could
be
interact with the
and the
letters.
letters
Yeah.
would also frame the building in an interesting way, because the whole concept of the brief to all the artists was framing, right? And so we use the letters to frame the space, the structure, and also the way you framed people as they were walking through the spaces. And so
of
that
course,
was just,
the idea of letters comes from, subtitles
Yeah.
in films and a way of kind of interpreting film.
and of course the choice of the word dialogue, because it was a film festival,
Yeah.
and also the pavilion becoming a space to have dialogues,
Yeah.
because it was placed strategically close to the cafe, so when people would just pick up a drink or whatever, they
Becomes a
could come and
gathering
actually sit on a
That was
letter and have a
actually-
conversation.
It was wonderful to see everyone
Yeah.
interact with this.
I think that's a dream for most designers, right? The integration of it with the human voices,
Yeah.
right? Becomes like a community space.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's it. Yeah, it was really a really fun one, and another unusual project that we worked on, and I guess this is the joy of being at it for so long, that you're not bound to, okay, I'm doing architecture and interiors, and you're doing graphics. Another fun collaboration that we did was with Bharat Tiles, where we designed, our collection is called Dash Dash Dot. And it's a very graphic collection of tiles. It's in terrazzo, pattern terrazzo. And it's really fun because there are 4 or 5 patterns, 4 or 5 different tiles, and you can actually put it together in any combination that you want and create your own flooring, really. So it gives the user, whether it's the architect, designer, or even a homeowner, the flexibility or the joy of actually buying, like, whatever combination of these 4 or 5 different sort of patterns, and put it together in your own way. So you have a sense of like ownership of the flooring. And that actually, the Dash Dash Dot collection has been like quite a success.
Quite a hit.
huh?
Yeah. It almost went viral. Maybe we have Instagram and
don't
these
think all
social
it
media
has.
to thank for that, but it went viral. So you kind of see that in so many homes used, and that's the kind of joy of designing products, to see it placed well, and people, architects, interior designers using it in such innovative ways also.
Anyway, thank you for this absolutely incredible conversation. Before we call it a wrap, we're going to play rapid fire.
Okay.
Another one, okay?
So Sandeep, we'll begin with you first, okay? Ready? Would you rather design a city that never grows old, or one that constantly reinvents itself?
Constantly reinvents itself.
Which is more honest, transparency or opacity?
Transparency.
If you could design using only reflection, what would you create?
Water body.
What's more powerful in architecture, anticipation or revelation?
Anticipation.
If you weren't designing spaces, what other form of storytelling would you pursue?
Film.
Lovely. Which detail of yours is a secret only the attentive will find?
Skirting.
Really? Oh, I'm going to look now. I'm curious. I'm so curious. Clearly not attentive enough.
You probably won't see it in images. Only
Oh
when you
yeah,
look
if
close.
I
Yeah.
visit in person. That gives me an excuse. Thank you so much for those lovely answers.
Yeah.
Your turn now. If your next graphic work could reflect an art movement, would it lean towards Bauhaus or folk inspired?
Folk inspired.
If your home had a signature artwork, would it be a narrative or an abstract?
A narrative.
Would your ideal space be flooded with natural light or defined by shadows and mood?
Natural light.
If your graphics were influenced by a craft, would it be hand drawing, block printing or textile patterns?
Textile. I think I was a textile designer in my past life.
If you stripped language out of graphic design, what's the first thing you would lean on? That's a heavy one.
No language, no typography. Color and shape.
is identity something you capture or something you construct?
It's definitely something you capture. Anything that's constructed doesn't sustain.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for those lovely answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this absolutely incredible conversation. Before we call it a wrap, I'd like for you to address our audiences and just give one line of advice or anything you'd like to share.
So I think if I were to talk about one of the most important things, I think for any design practice, I think is patience. Patience with your own design process. Don't rush it. Take your time and really let ideas mull. And I think that's one thing I tell my clients, just leave me alone for the first few weeks. Don't bother me. I need to sit with the design. I need to really work on ideas. And if you give it the time in the beginning, and we as designers need to have patience and our clients need to have the patience to wait. And then when you present, it's more than half the battle won, because you've really thought through what you're creating, and once you're convinced, then your clients will be convinced. So I think patience in the first part of the design process is crucial, and then towards the end of the design process, patience is more important than anything, because you start losing steam towards the end and you can't see the finish line, but you've just got to keep going and make sure that you don't compromise on any detail, and that every detail and the quality is of the highest standards. So patience, I think, is really important to designers.
Thank you so much.
Well, talking about patience, I might kind of pick up from that. I think as young designers, you might get frustrated if a client kind of rejects your first proposal, but I think there's no absolute one proposal for any kind of solution. So there's always another way, and sometimes if you kind of relook at a project and look at the constraints and look at the reasons why that proposal was shot down, be open, and you might come out with a better solution. And it's happened to us time and time again in our practice, where some of our most award-winning work has been the second proposal or the third proposal, which is completely different from the first. So that's my advice, yeah.
Thank you so much for those beautiful answers. Thank you for watching episode 6 of the Mirzapur Manifesto, brought to you by our brand partners, OBT.